So this channel is, of course, scientific glassblowing, but what I'm about to do is some artistic glassblowing, and why this is really important is, at least to me, is this was one of the most important things I learned how to do in glassblowing, and I learned it watching a YouTube video, much like you are doing it now. And basically what I'm going to do is make a glass icicle. So I've got a small amount of some pink glass puntied up. It's basically a hot seal. I've got a small amount of some white glass right here that I'm going to use to streak along. And so if you imagine that this pink glass is toast, maybe I should use yellow, and this is the butter. I'm going to take the toast and push it across the butter, which seems kind of odd way to butter your bread, but that's basically what we're going to do. Now, there are a couple techniques that you can use. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the white glass stationary in the flame. The tip of it will melt, and then I'm going to slide the pink glass over it. The other way to do it is to come in from overhand and go across like this. I've seen both methods used. I've used both methods simply because it's going to be much easier for me to video holding the glass like this, so you can see what's happening. I'm going to do it essentially underhand, and I'm going to use my left hand to hold what will eventually become the body of the icicle, and my right hand to hold the glass that I'm going to streak. And in this case, I'll make 2 streaks of the white. You could have multiple streaks, 2, 3, 4, whatever you want to do, however the diameter can hold it. As well as, obviously, you could use different colors of glass depending on what you're trying to do. But in this case, it's purely for demonstrating the technique. And then what I'll do is I'll use this dark blue glass. This is actually blue. It's kind of hard to see without the light shining through it, to make the hook. And this is a technique I learned after taking a course in scientific glassblowing from Salem Community College. I wanted to learn more about glassblowing, so naturally I went onto YouTube and typed in scientific glassblowing, and amongst those videos I found this tutorial for making glass icicles, and I'll put a link to this because it's an excellent series of tutorial videos, much better than what I can do, that really got me into it. And one of the things I should mention, what's absolutely critical is rotation. And I've already made a little video talking about or showing you how to use a stick and honey to get the rotation down. It's kind of hard to see with me holding it with the angle of the camera, but the idea is that my hand is on autopilot, that it will rotate and rotate and rotate and rotate, and keep the glass uniformly heated as I'm working it. And of course the idea is to have both hands working. And so the reason I'm not going to hold the icicle in my right hand and go to my left is because it would block it with the camera and I'd have to swap everything. So bear with me. Okay, so this will be the base of the icicle, essentially its body, and it's not perfectly centered. It's just basically a piece of waste glass, colored glass that's puntied up here. First you warm it up, so as I'm rotating I just kind of go back and forth in the flame to heat it up. It has a very significant wobble to it because, again, it's not centered properly, but that really won't make any difference because part of this technique is as you heat it and twist it, you can bring it back on axis, no problem. It's critical to warm it up enough that the glass will stick when we layer it on here, but if I heat it up too much, it'll start to become floppy and I'll lose control over it. So this is a pretty good amount. So now I'm rotating the white glass in the flame just to warm it up, just to get it to become molten. You can see based on the color change how that's happening. And I'm holding this again, in a little weird angle that I would normally do just for sake of the video. Okay, so the white glass, you can see it's molten at the tip. Okay, so I touch it and then streak it across. Okay, it's important to keep the flame on the leading edge of the white, so that way it's hot enough that it will soften enough to allow it to streak. You can see you've got a little extra on the end, so you can just basically gently push that on your marver to do that. When you separate, when you pull it off, you don't want to pull a very massive stringer. And the other thing you don't want to do, but I'm doing it for the video, is take it out, you know, and admire your work, because it can rapidly cool down and crack. If the white isn't sealed on, if it's not a really good weld between the two pieces of glass, it will crack off at that point as well. So admire your work after you're done. So now I need to go back in with the white. Notice I'm keeping the base of the icicle in the back, and I'm rotating it, and I'm heating it with essentially the splash of the flame. So I want to keep it warm, but I don't want it to get too hot so it becomes floppy. Okay, so now I've got some of that white glass again. Heat it up, take it, push it, smush it over there. You can wiggle or rotate partially, you know, back and forth the white glass to help its uniformity as it's in the flame to go from there. Here I put these white lines a little closer. They're more or less centered, not quite, but it's good enough. Like that. If I heat this whole thing up too much, as I'm spreading the white glass over, what will happen is this will start to bend. It'll start to come off axis. And the way to fix that, you can push it on the opposite side. That'll help a little bit. Just come to your marver and gently rotate as you're on the marver, and that'll bring it back along the axis. I'm going back and forth, heating this whole thing up, just to make sure that the white and the base color of the pink are sealed together. Now I'm going to switch hands for a moment as I work on sealing these two together. It really doesn't matter whether I'm using my right hand or my left hand to hold the blue glass, but hopefully, like I said, with the angle of the camera, it'll make it easier to see. So now I'm going to weld these two together, and again, I'm watching myself in the video display to try and show you what's happening with my hands. I'm doing this at a weird angle, simply so you can see the point of contact. So I want to get the tips of about the first few millimeters of each end of the glass hot, and now I touch them together in the flame. Push them together now, and this is at glass hot, and now I touch them together in the flame. Push them together now, and this is absolutely critical. This was incredibly frustrating when I was first learning how to do this. Notice my hands. They are rotating together. And this is something that I broke many potential icicles as I was learning to get my hands to play nicely together. So you see I've got an overhand position for how I'm holding the glass. You could potentially do it this way if you felt more comfortable, but the key is your hands have to work together. Now, notice when I switched that, I actually got the glass a little off center, and the way you can feel that is the glass will kind of jump rope in your hand. You'll know. I'm gonna stop and show you a terrible version of what I'm talking about. This can happen to you where you stopped rotating and now the glass is like a jump rope skipping. So what you have to do, get my hands back into position, warm up this point, the apex of the jump rope, and once it's soft, go back and then go back into your normal rotation. Rotate, and that'll bring it back on axis. By the way, rotating away from you, rotating towards you, doesn't matter, whichever makes you most comfortable. I tend to rotate towards myself, but then when I'm doing certain functions of working with the glass. I'll rotate in the opposite direction, or you can alternate. You can do this. You can go back and forth, back and forth. That's perfectly fine. But you have to, again, be consistent. Now, what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to heat that interface between the blue glass and the pink glass, which is the base of the icicle. I'm going to heat that really well, let that heat soak in there, and let these two pieces of glass merge into one. And the reason why that's critical is the blue glass will eventually become the hook. So this is the hook, the top of the icicle, and this is the icicle itself. If this interface is a cold seal, it'll break, is really what it comes down to. Okay, so got that nice and hot. And there's more than one way to do this, but the way I learned it watching Timia Glass, I believe is how it's pronounced, that video series. Imagine you've got the icicle split into thirds. So you heat the bottom third, you're going to twist it, pull it a little bit, shape it, the middle, and then the twist and shape it, and then the top third, and go from there. But there's more than one way to do it. In other words, I could start working from the top, but you'll see what I'm talking about in a second. The pink glass, I want to say it is probably around 6 to 7 millimeters. It's, like I said, it's not uniform, and I've got the white glass on top of it. This technique, before I forget to mention the term, is called gradient heating, where you're heating one section more than the rest, so that way when you manipulate the glass, when you twist it, only the section that's hottest will move. Okay, so I'm heating up that bottom 1/3. Take it, twist it very carefully. I could pull at this point if I wanted to. Take it, twist it very carefully. I could pull at this point if I wanted to, but what I've found, at least for me, is I like to twist everything up first and then come back, reheat it, and taper it. But if you've got more experience, you can do both at the same time. So I'm heating up the middle, okay, twisting and twisting, and I'm gently pulling, but not very much. And normally I would not do what I'm doing now of take it out of the flame completely and hold it at this weird angle. Normally what I would do, I'd heat it up and I'd twist above the flame like this. But let me change position of my hand. So I'd heat first, get this nice and floppy. Here, I think this will be visible. I'll just do a small section. Okay. I come up and then I would twist. Okay. And if I wanted to pull. And then I go back into the flame. So that way I'm not risking cracking anything by bringing it out as an exaggerated move and doing the twisting or the shaping. Typically what I do when I get to the very top of the icicle is I twist and I actually push a little bit. And the reason I push is I want the top to be thicker than the bottom, so that helps there. It's entirely up to you. You know what you're doing here as far as that final shaping. So I go back, I'm going to do that again, push that, make it a little bit thicker, and twist. Once you've committed to a direction for twisting, make sure you stick with that. I believe it's called a wig-wag, where you can have one section twisting clockwise and then the next section twist counterclockwise, and so on. That's not the effect I want here. And the reason why is this is a tutorial. This is how to teach yourself to have your hands rotating together. And you'll know when you're doing it correctly because it won't be a disaster like, again, the first time I was trying this. So now I'm going back, I'm heating up the bottom third, so this will be the bottom of the icicle. Notice how I'm holding it where it's actually got a little bit of a bend. That's something I like to do because what it shows me is that the glass is soft enough that it'll move when I pull on it and twist it, pull on it and twist it. Now again, at this step you don't want to be too aggressive. When I pull on it and twist it. Pull on it and twist it. Now again, at this step you don't want to be too aggressive of how you pull it because you can pull it really, really thin. So this is pretty good. This part will be the very bottom of the icicle, and when I finish, I'll pull this off and shape it to whatever I want. If I wanted a really long, really thin one, I could keep going, but I don't want to do that. So now, this section, which is, was essentially the middle portion of what I started with, I'm going to go back. Notice I'm rotating and I am moving back and forth. That helps, again, distribute the heat. So now it's becoming soft. It's becoming, again, very floppy. So I come out, gently twist and pull. Again, I'm doing this as controlled as gently twist and pull. Again, I'm doing this as controlled as I can. There's a slight bulge right here that I could go back and taper it a little bit more. So I'm just going to gently heat that. So that one section, it's a little thicker than the rest, gets the heat, and now I pull and twist. And I should mention, I do have a slight delay between when you pull the glass. You don't want to come directly out because the glass is so liquid that it will flow very rapidly, and you'll pull it much thinner than you intend. Oh, whoops, splash shield. So this is something that you just have to practice. Trust me on this. I'll show my very first icicle that I made that didn't break. I made many attempts over several days, and it was, again, hysterically bad. If I would have been filming it, it would have been in the epic fail section of YouTube. I would have probably got a lot more views, but it was very frustrating. However, practicing, I eventually got it down to where my hands could move, just like they're doing now, where they're rotating together, and I'm not even thinking about it. Here I am babbling away talking about this video, but the whole time my hands have been doing their thing. So now for the bail, for the hook at the end. There are several techniques to do this. So I'm going to heat up about ½ an inch of this blue glass. And I need it to be really, really soft. Now in this case, because I'm right-handed, doing this left-handed is the excuse I'm going to use for the if it goes badly. Okay. And so I take this, let's see, I pull it out away from me, and then wrap it back onto itself, and then stick it. Let's see, I pull it out away from me, and then wrap it back onto itself, and then if I would have been a little bit closer to the flame to keep that warmer, it would have been better. Then I burn it off, okay, and now I've got a reasonably good-looking shepherd's hook that I do need to clean up a little bit. So to clean it up, what I like to do is come in here, heat that up. What I'm looking for is to make sure that this little bulb right here is properly fused on here. Now the thing is, if I want, I could heat up this section and with my graphite marver come in here and shape it a little bit. But honestly, that's fine. Yeah, this is a case where I've got a pretty good looking hook. I could, by the way, I'm going to go back in the flame and just kind of keep everything happy, warm it up. I could come back here, heat this, and then push this through to make the hole a little bit bigger. But honestly, when you do that, this glass is very thin right now. And if I hit it with a very sharp, very hot flame, it's going to start to soften and it's going to lose this shape. So at least for a beginner like me, you get one shot. You pull it out, you wrap it over, bang, you're done. If it comes out bad, you got to basically tear the whole thing off and do it again. You can try and repair it, but trust me, what I found as a beginner, it's better off to just rip the whole thing off and start over. After you have a lot more experience, obviously you can correct it. It's one of those catch-22s of, well, of course an expert can repair it, but at the same time an expert would never make that mistake. So yeah, that's where it becomes very frustrating. So now what I'm going to do is I'm warming up my tweezers, and I'm going to hold it here, and the best I can, I'm using the tweezers to support it. I'm going to heat the bottom up so it becomes soft, and eventually I'm going to remove it. Now the thing is, and I'm going to do this exaggerated, so this bottom part, give it a little bit of a pull to get it started, I can actually make this pretty darn long if I really, really wanted to. In other words, I could pull this out, and I'm going to, exaggerate. I could pull this out, and I'm going to, exaggerate. Well, obviously I don't want to add another 4 or 5 inches of a glass piece that's like a millimeter or less in diameter. So what I'm going to do, and you shouldn't, by the way, you shouldn't do what I just did, but this is again to show you what happens if you pull too aggressively. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to burn it off right there. And I do like to have where it's got like this little teardrop at the bottom. You don't have to do that. At this point, you could take it and do anything else that you want with it as far as shaping the bottom. In other words, if I heated the bottom, I could paddle it and make it flat, but that really wouldn't look very nice. So at this point, what you want to do is put it into the annealing oven, or in my case, I've got the fiberglass blankets, but I'll show some photos of this at the end of this video. But this video, obviously I'm showing you how to make a glass icicle, but what you really are learning by doing this, even if you could care less about glass icicles, I have so many of these damn things, they're just all over the place, stuck in boxes in my closet because I don't care about them that much. The grip of the glass, the rotation of the glass, and then doing the exact same thing with your opposite hand, and then having your two hands work together. So you want to refer back to the video that I made where I have a stick and I'm rotating a ball of honey on it. In this case, learning all of these techniques, rotation of the glass, streaking one type of glass onto another, fusing the two rods, twisting it with the gradient heating, and all of that. If you can make an icicle, you will, a good icicle, you will have mastered numerous techniques in glassblowing that will definitely translate into scientific glassblowing. And I'm speaking from my own experience because after I made not 1 or 2 icicles, but over 100 of them, what I found was when I was doing my glassblowing for scientific glassblowing that I was keeping everything aligned intuitively. I wasn't even thinking about it, and I was making a part for one of our professors, and what's funny is normally as I'm approaching the end I have to spend a lot of time to making, correcting the angle because it's always off axis because I'm not good. But what I found was that because I had practiced these rotations for the icicle so much that when all was said and done, I didn't need to make any really major corrections because the entire part was on axis. And that the only way you can learn that is by practicing, having a piece of glass and working in the flame, and again, rotating and keeping both hands working together. If you notice, I twisted the glass, making the icicle. Well, the thing is, you have a tendency to want to twist when you're working in the flame. Sometimes when you're doing something decorative like this, that's what you're trying to do. If you're not, you need both hands to be rotating together. Right? I'm showing them even though they're not attached, to prevent it from twisting. Because if I've got a piece of glass tubing, this is a blank, if I'm rotating this, but one of my hands is going at the wrong speed, it'll twist, and that's catastrophic for glass tubing, to have a kink, a twist in it. Once you've done that, you're spiraling out of control at that point, and basically it'll collapse on itself. Here. I will do a a bonus fail video. I'll take one of my blow tubes and sacrifice it for the cause, as it were. Let me crank this up a little bit. So right now I'm rotating with both hands together. And I'm trying to position my hands so you can both see my hands and the glass. Okay. So the glass is getting soft right now. Now, if I take it, and what I did is I twisted. Now, if I take it, and what I did is I twisted, and you can see, you know, I'm way off axis right now. In other words, that's a huge problem. And it only took me a fraction of a second to get way out of alignment in the glass. By twisting it, it's kind of a little bit thinner than it should be. And notice now, you know, when I'm trying to rotate it, it's way off axis. Now, to properly fix this, what I actually have to do is blow into it. But again, this is just for a demo to show you that it'd probably be easier to see this if it had like some color on it or something. But if you don't get your hands working together, if you can't control that rotation, it will be a problem.